So, very good.
I have a question.
Yes, Caroline.
What is a good lifting brush? I find some of mine are so soft that they don't lift well.
That's true. There's a difference between lifting and scrubbing. I'll show you my lifting brushes and my scrubbing brushes.
Okay.
Let's see. That's an excellent question because I'm a lifter and I like to lift. All right, I gotta stop. This is, I bought extra ones of these brushes. These, let's see what looks best. My personal preference is I have, what brand is this? This is Robert Simmons. Yeah, Robert Simmons Sapphire. These are not cheapo brushes, but I have 4 of them, and I have these angles. They're angled ones just because they gave them to me, and I like the idea of these angled brushes. These brushes would be considered a regular watercolor brush. I think this is kind of what Hobby Lobby kind of sells in their intro, but I mean, they're soft. So the idea of, and I have them different size because when I lift, I might want to, on a small painting, I might want to lift like an eyelid right here. And so with a small lifting brush, soft lifting brush, I can do that without damaging. The larger you get, the less detail you have for doing something small, okay? So, so that's, now if you have a nylon brush, this is my detail brush. If you have a brush, an inexpensive brush that has a stiff point on it, see how this one is stiff?
Yep.
Okay, because it's all nylon, it creates some resistance because it's stiff. It's inexpensive, and because of that, it holds a point, but it also will gently lift. Let me get a little water here. As opposed to the same size in this silver black velvet, where it's a much softer tip.
Right.
This one won't cause much resistance, so it won't necessarily lift like this one will, because this one's really stiff. So a cheap brushes have value for lifting. So I would have a tissue in my hand, and if I wanted a straight line, because I was doing something architectural, I want to get maybe the edge of a fence back. It got too soft. So if I wanted a straight line on the side, maybe I smudged a roof line and it's just too fuzzy. You can tape down. You don't have to press too hard because you're going to pull it back up and you don't want to damage anything. But if I wanted to get a roof line back, I could take, what I would do is I would start with the less destructive brush first. So a nice soft brush, I could come in here and and I'll just do this edge, and I'll have a straight line where the tape is, and I'll blot. Okay, do I need it lighter than that? Okay, I'm going to say yes. So I'm going to softly, with this soft brush, you can see how it's, maybe you can see, here's kind of the motion here. That's as rough as this brush will get, is because I can't, if I push down any harder, it just goes to the deal here. Mm-hmm. So am I getting that back? Maybe. Okay, let's say I want to go further. Then I go to a more firmer brush, which will cause more resistance, and I can go in here, and you see how this brush, you know, I suppose I could smash it down, but This brush stays really firm. And it's a little bit more aggressive, but it's not too aggressive. Now, if I lift this paint up, if you can see, I hope you can see, this is a razor sharp edge, and this is a soft edge. Oops, hope you can see that. This is a hard edge because the tape masked it off. So now I'm going to go over here, and I'll get in the dark spot here. Same tape, you can reuse the tape. Especially if you make a shape of somebody, you can cut out with a, you know, some specific shape too, and then tape it down. Now, if I use this brush, I don't know where I got this brush. It's really stiff. This thing is called a, well, this thing is just a very stiff brush. I don't even have them in here. You can buy things called scrubbers, and I have some of those. And what they are is a really cheap, hang on, let me look. This brush is called, I don't know if you can see it. It says it's a silver scrubber angle. It's very stiff nylon. And they sell it as a scrubber. And you can buy a set of like 3 of these things for like $4 or $5. I mean, they're very rough. And because of they're very rough, you can, and I'll do the same thing, is I'll just come in here and I'll rub the paper, but it's really easy to rub right through the surface of the paper, and you'll start getting the fibers. And the longer you rub, the softer the paper is getting, and the more the fibers will be damaged and peel up. But that's what a scrubber is. And gentle brushes I call lifters, because they will lift without damaging. Scrubbers, you want to get down to the white of the paper, and you don't care what happens to the paper because it's going to be the white of the paper when you're done. But a scrubber, so that's kind of the difference, and that's how to use masking. You'll get a hard edge and then a soft edge, and you can control your lift really well. And you can just kind of put it down. So I use, and this was a Cotman brand. It's just another style, but I like the angled ones because I can come in and what I did here, if we get this far at the end, if you look at the edge of his face here, you'll see at the end of my painting, I came in and I lifted the edge to get that little highlight in there. On the end of his nose, I lifted that very carefully with a sharp brush to get some of these little lines. If you lost the glint in his eye, you could mask out a little teeny tiny dot and go in there and just get a speck inside of a masking tape, and you can get that little speck back because it'll be sharp because of the tape all the way around it. But at the very end, I like to lift some of these little areas. It's kind of like the final little touches. So lifters versus scrubbers. Well, and then also people will use magic eraser, and that's the same thing as a scrubber. If you want to get some, you overpainted something and you want to get back to the white of the paper, you can use magic eraser. Let's do the same thing again. So magic eraser, so I have a line here and I can come in here and I'm damaging the heck out of this paper. I can take that. I don't know if you can see, I'm getting paper fibers right here. It's either paper fibers or part of the sponge, you know. If you do that, you can get right down to the white of the paper. And that, you might want that for some reason. I mean, that's, if you want to get the highlight back on a rock, you might do this. You might mask off around the rock and then lift back to get the highlights back on the rock. Okay?
Yep.
Okay. I like to lift. I'm a lifter. So next slide. No lines in nature. I didn't really talk about this. I did a little bit, but I kind of glossed over it. When you make a brush stroke, if you make a brush stroke and you think the edge of something, the edge of a plant, the edge of anything looks like that, it just, well, I made mine with a little variation in there. Let's say I did this very boring line. When you do that with one color, it looks really boring. Don't ever do that. If you're going to make a blue line, it's better you throw, while it's damp, it's better you kind of throw in something, or let's make it a little green. And then when you do that, intermittently soften the edge. Do it again a little bit bigger here so you can see a little better. Don't make lines. Straight lines are not. If I want to make a nice rich line here. Okay, so let's say I make a line. You know, if it's going to be a green line, and if you intermittently dabbed in some colors in here, or you would intermittently throw in some burnt sienna in here, that makes the line interesting, but it's still got 100% soft edges. If you clean your brush, let's see, clean your brush quickly, and then I'll take like 5 out of it, and then I'll come in here and touch the inside of it and just kind of soften it intermittent. It's going to be way more interesting. You don't like hard edges, okay? Because hard edges are too, like they're cutout shapes. So if you're doing power lines, okay, that might be a reason to do a line. But if you're doing a border of a roof line, let's say, and you draw this line all the way up because there's this shadow underneath the siding, well, that looks really crappy. Okay.
Hey, Bill, there's a guy who does that with his art.
Let me spotlight you here. Hang on.
He uses a lot of line, but none of them are harsh. I mean, they're
okay.
all.
Yeah. Good.
And then this side too.
Just you can use them, but just randomly knock down some of the edges.
Yeah.
And then I can't necessarily see it, but is that all monotone? Is it all the same color?
Pretty monotone. He does cityscapes, you know.
Okay. But the idea of doing a stem, you know, you might make this green go all the way down, but it's better that with everything you just dot in a little bit of something else. Oops,
Yeah, he does. He breaks all that up.
It just makes it more interesting. It's more like watercolor. Okay, so no lines, tend to the edges, and no single shapes. Again, that kind of comes with experience. But if you look at people that paint grass, and all there are grass or branches, and all they are is a bunch of dark marks, and then ask yourself, is that interesting or not? When somebody does grass and all there are is hard lines that go up, 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 up. They're all exactly the same color green, and they're all, well, of course, don't make them all the same direction, you know, because, you know, but if you just go in there and you add a touch of water and then you add a touch of a different color, a yellow if you're making a grass, or a blue maybe at the base, while they're damp, immediately while they're damp, it's going to look so much more interesting than just a bunch of exactly the same color, exactly the same shape grass strokes. Okay. And again, this is something that experience or people around you critiquing you will bring that out. You know, I mean, that's why we having these critique events, because somebody else can do that for you.